Hello everyone. So in this video I just wanted to do a demonstration of the power of BRXProd or Bricks Productivity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a blank WordPress installation, except for I have already pre-installed my plugins and my theme. All I've done with them is activated the licenses. Everything's currently deactivated at the moment, so I'm going to go through and show you how we set it up from the scratch. I'm going to use just basic Bricks Wireframes and create a framework that's usable out of that, and then show you some of the features that make BRXProd absolutely amazing. So my name is Alan from BRXProd and WP-Easy, and I will try and get through this as quickly as I can. This is not a full tutorial of each feature, it's just really a preview of what you can do with this. So I'll kind of talk through, and there's going to be a little bit of ad libs, so if I go off track a little bit, then I'll come back whenever I notice that I'm coming off track a little bit. So here we have the dashboard, and I have in my appearance here I've got bricks available but not activated. In my plugins I've got my plugins available but not activated, and when I activate these are licensed, and that's it. That's nothing else done. So I'm going to start from that point there. So the first thing I need to do is activate my Bricks child theme. Okay, and we can see if we go into the settings here, none of the settings have been done. It's just been activated and licensed. Okay, so I'm going to go to my plugins now. I'm going to activate Bricks Productivity, Fluent Snippets, and that's it. I'm not going to worry about any of these others just yet, so I'm just going to activate those. I'm going to go through Bricks and do just some basic standard settings. So under the general, we're going to allow SVG uploads. I always do that. No, we don't do that. That's not here. Disable that, disable that. I want to do that. I want to do that. I want smooth scroll. I'll leave everything else as it is. What else have we got here? I want my filters just in case I use them. I'm not going to use any of this, not for this site. We want to check for orphaned elements. Not caring about builder access or templates in the builder. We are going to just enable some of these new features here. So, okay, I'm not going to worry about any of that. I do want to remember my spacing controls. That's a really useful one for me. We definitely want to disable element spacing. We never want that. Just enable all these little actions on your structure panel. We want to import pasted SVGs. I'm not going to worry about any of this because I'm not using any of that. I do like showing my query loop type, and I do render my dynamic data on the canvas. I don't use any custom fields in WordPress now because I use Metabox for everything. So we'll disable that. We do want to sync global classes. That's if multiple people are using it. It does help. And I'm going to enable this instant navigation. I don't think I'm using that, but I'll enable it anyway. And the performance, typically I don't have emojis on my website. I disable that. If you're not going to put YouTube embeds, things like that, disable that. We want to disable our Google fonts. We're going to use Google fonts, but this disables them in the selectors in Bricks, so you can't go into the theme and select a Google font. We're going to use a different way of doing that so that we make sure that we create custom fonts, so we're not loading them from Google, so it speeds everything up there. I don't really care about lazy loading at the moment. We're not going to do any optimization on that. We don't need jQuery migrate. We do want to cache query loops, and we do want to disable the chaining of elements in global CSS. Leave this as default, and we want to preload our custom fonts. This all makes sense to me. We don't want to touch that. Okay, and then under the custom code, we want to allow custom code for administrators. Okay, save settings, and that is our Bricks done. Okay, we're now going to go into we're going to start with where we always start. So if I go to my pages, I have the default pages that WordPress creates. I'm not going to do anything with these, so I'm just going to leave those there. Where you always need to start is with a header, right? So I'm just going to go into Bricks templates. I'm going to add a new template. That's going to be a header. And we need to tell it it's a header. And edit that. Did I click edit? No, mustn't have clicked it. Alright, now the first thing we need to do with our templates for headers and footers is we need to go in there, we need to set a condition. We're going to put this on our entire site because I'm not going to do multiple headers. Now we need to get some content in there that we can play with. I'm just going to drag these a little bit so I get a little bit more preview iframe real estate here. I'm going to use the Bricks Wireframes template. So I'm just going to go to templates here. It's on wireframes. And I'm going to select a drop down's not working. Why are you not working? Still waiting. Okay, we're going to select the header. I'm just going to use this basic header there, this header 02. Insert that. The first time you insert a Bricks Wireframes, you have to tell it that you want all the framework variables that come with it. So we're going to hit yes. You want to tell it that you want the basic theme that comes with it. Hit yes. And we want the colors that come with it. This is these neutral colors. We say yes. That's just so that you can use the wireframes. Okay, now here we are. We've got a start. Now I'm just going to hit save on that. Now, the first thing we notice, because we've just installed WordPress, we don't have any menus, we don't have anything set up whatsoever. So instead of having to go back in through your front end or going back into your WordPress dashboard or whatever, you get to that using BRXProd. Here's our settings here, but along here you've got some shortcuts, and these open up in an iframe. And because I've got Fluent Snippets installed, I get a little Fluent Snippets iframe. I get an iframe to our documentation. I get one to WP Admin. So if I click on that, that's WP Admin in a window, in a modal within our editor. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create some pages. So I'm going to go into Appearance, Menus. And I'm going to create a, actually we'll do it through Customize. I think I like the Customize way of doing it better. And I'm just going to create a new one. Let's call this main. Add some items. We're going to need a home page. We're going to need an about. We're going to need services. And go free and paid. And let's create a style page here so we can set up our framework as well. And we'll put our free and paid as submenus here just by dragging those. We've just basically created pages and a menu in a very, very quick few clicks and few typings in Customizers. Hit publish, save that, and that's done. And now that we have a menu, in fact, what happened there? Let's go to our menus. Did that save? It did. It just did a weird update. Okay, so we've created everything there. Now we want to go into our settings and reading, and we just want to select our home page as the home page. I'm not going to go through all the WordPress settings, just the ones that are relevant to what we're doing right now. Save that. Now I'll close this here, and there's a little note up here that says if you make changes, you have to reload the editor because this is at the WordPress level. So when we close that, we just have to save our changes here and just do a refresh. Okay, and you see we've got a menu. So we're all ready to go. We're all cooking with gas. One thing, we'll come back to all this later because these templates need some work. But we're going to get a framework up and running first. So if we look at the framework that was imported, there is a very basic theme. It has no conditions. There's a bunch of stuff missing in there. It's only imported the classes for the template that we just imported. And our variables are all uncategorized and disorganized, and none of these are using the Bricks scales. And our colors, we've basically got some neutral colors, and we've got our default colors. So we've really got not much to work with as a framework moving into production. So we're going to fix that using our first BRXProd feature, which we go into our settings. And in our settings, we go into there and we go into our Bricks Wireframe tools, Manage Wireframe tools. And there's a little process button here. It's found 138 variables with the Bricks Wireframes prefix, so BRXW. And they're all uncategorized. We also want to create some default colors, which you can uncheck if you don't want that. And we want to update our theme settings, which basically all the organized variables, the colors, everything that we're going to import are going to actually populate the theme, so we get our button colors and all that sort of stuff. And we're going to hit the process button, and it's going to do all of these things which you can read in your own time. Hit done, hit done, hit save. Actually, we don't have to hit save here because we've made changes. And now if you go into the theme, there'll be a condition for the entire website. There's a style sheet here which has got some stuff that we put on there, and you've got a whole bunch of settings in the elements for buttons and things like that. We didn't touch the classes. Variables are all organized into nice little categories. We've got some miscellaneous stuff that we couldn't find. If it had a big BRXW dash and we couldn't find a category for it, we stick it into MISC, and that's it there. And then we've got the typography, spacing, and radius have now been converted into Bricks scale. So we go here for our setting up our typography, here for our spacing, and there for our radius. So it's all organized and ready to use. We have colors. So if we go in here and go to our BRXProd palette there, we've got primary, secondary, surface. These three all have transparencies, light and dark shades. Then we've got some context colors, which are all just single colors, and that's all done for you in a single click. For processing the existing Bricks wireframe template, we've turned it into something we can use into production. Okay, so that is done. Now we have to hit save because we've actually made some changes there. And we're going to head over to, there's one thing I haven't got a link to here, shortcut to, which is the next template. So we're going to go back to the back end, and we're going to go into Bricks, Templates, and we're going to add a footer. Alright, so we're in the footer. First thing again we've got to do is go to template settings, conditions, and make that the entire website. Now we're going to grab a footer. This should be caching. This is an issue with Bricks. I've brought it up with them. I'm not sure if they've acknowledged that as a bug, but this should be caching so it loads a lot quicker. But that's something I'm sure they'll fix into the future. Footers. It's grabbing our footer. We'll just grab this footer 3, chuck it in there. Again, we're going to come back and make some significant changes to these headers and footers, but for the moment, we're just getting them in there. And there we go, and now we have it up and running. Now we can just go to the front end for that footer. Actually close that one there. We have a menu. We've got a header, which we can edit later. We've got a footer, which we can edit later. And I'm going to go into the style. Okay, the reason I picked style is we're going to set up our framework now. So we're going to edit our style with Bricks. Okay, so we're in here now with BRXProd. The next thing I'm going to show you is we have in the Manage Wireframe tools, we've got some click to copy templates to these are insertable templates into Bricks. So we're going to look at typography and our colors first. So typography, and insert that. Okay, so we've got some typography to look at. I'm going to go back into there, go back into our wireframe tools, and we're going to get our colors, copy clipboard. And by the way, with all of these here, all these modals here, these all close when you click outside. So you don't have to click the done button. So if you copy that to clipboard, you can just click anywhere on the backdrop. And we're not saving anything because we didn't change anything. We just copied to the clipboard. So we'll close that, and then we're just going to paste that in there. So we've got a color showcase there. All right. So features I'm going to enable first is the first one is this Bricks Enhancements. So the Bricks Enhancements is going to give us copy and paste for our conditions, interactions, attributes. It's going to give us a style manager shortcuts, which I want to show you now. And it gives us a bunch of other stuff, which we're going to look at later. So I'm going to hit save. And what that's done, that I'm going to use is that when I point at the style manager button, I'm going to get this popover, which you don't get with Bricks. Style manager, typically you'd have to go into there, and then you'd have to find where you want to go. With these, if you just want to go to, for example, your typography scales, you just roll your mouse over and click on that. Okay, so now we're going to, I'm just going to expand that out a bit, and you can expand and contract this a little bit. Now, Bricks Wireframes use 4XL for your H1, and then it goes down from there, so 3XL, your H2, etc. And we're using medium or M as our base, which will be what we use for our body copy. So let's just make some changes here. And by the way, on purpose, what I've done here is in my initial settings, I've made it wrong so you can see here that on a desktop, our heading 4 is smaller than our heading 1, which we don't want. So that's to say, hey, we need to change some of these settings, okay? So let's say we'll just change those. We'll make that, say, 15 on desktop, and we'll make it 18 on mobile, 18 on desktop, and we'll just up that scale a little bit there. So we're actually going to match the scales. You can change the scales as you please. Now we're looking at it. That's our H1 on a desktop, and that's our H1 on mobile, H2, etc. Okay, so I'm going to hit generate variables and hit OK. So when you change these, all these changes are preview, and you need to hit generate variables, otherwise it doesn't save those changes. Now we're just going to, while we're here, we're just going to do the same with our spacing. Oops, go to the spacing one. So with our spacing, and we're going to change that. I'm going to make it desktop size, so mobile size, keep muddling these up, mobile size 10, and we'll make it the same ratio, and then on desktop we'll make it 20, just make sure we're happy with that curve. So here's our mobile, medium spacing on mobile, and our medium spacing on desktop. So that's what we're seeing there, and then you can see the curve as it goes up from there. Generate variables. Okay, and we're going to do the same with our radii. So radius there. I don't know why we've made those different. Let's make that the same there, and maybe make that, say, 12 on mobile. We're just looking at M, so mobile is our radius here. You can see my mouse moving, hopefully, and desktop is our radius there for medium. So you make that whatever you want. You might go 14, so you don't want as much of a difference. I'm going to go 12 just so we can see there's a significant difference, and then hit generate variables. And that is our scales for our typography, spacing, and radii done. Okay, hit save. Done. Now we've got one more thing to do with our typography. I'm going to enable a new feature. This is in the paid. So by the way, when you look at these, all the green ones are all free. And there's a stack of stuff you get with the free license. All of these orange ones are all pro, which means they're all in the paid license. So there's multiple licenses we've got for paid, but all of them include the same features. So these are all the paid licenses. So we're going to enable our font pairing here and hit save. And we get a little icon up here, which is our font pairing. Now, we could enable AI. I'm not going to go into all that. We can add a provider. And if you add a provider there, you get some prompts that you can put in there, and we get some buttons here. We can say suggest. It'll go off to say OpenAI. It'll come back with a suggestion of a pairing. If you don't like it, you hit suggest again. It'll go off and it'll come back with another pairing. If you like the heading but not the body, you can lock the heading, suggest again, and find body, and you can just work through using AI to just throw suggestions at you. I'm just going to select them from here though. So by the way, if you remember in our Bricks settings here, in our settings under performance, we disabled Google Fonts, okay, but we still have the Google font list which we can select from. So what that is for is if you go into the theme typography, in there, up in there, that didn't select the right one. That's the typography scale. There's just been an update to Bricks, so these may have changed. I might have to have a look at that. So we go to theme typography. That's selected elements. Okay, I've got to double check that. There's a change to Bricks that just came through this morning, so I've got to double check that. And that's one of the issues with developing for Bricks, is that there's no events that they throw to or anything to allow us to integrate with this. We have to watch the DOM and work with the DOM to see what we can see to interact with it. And if they change any of the classes, IDs, or change the structure, then we need to fix that up. So we need to know when these things change. So let's have a look at typography. What that is in our, say, our heading one, for example, here, we cannot select Google Fonts in there because that's disabled through our Bricks settings. But we still have a list of Google Fonts that we can use in here. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. So I'm going to maybe select Enter for our heading, maybe into tight. That didn't update properly there, but it did here. That's something else that's changed. And we'll go into tight, say 700. And, oh, maybe it's because we disabled the Google Fonts. Let me just check that. That's something I had not considered. So disable Google Fonts. See how quickly we can just get backwards and forwards between these. We don't have to go to tabs and open up new windows. It's just all done from a single click in here, and we're right where we need to be. So I'm just going to hit save on that and reload. Okay, so let's try that now. So if I change that to a bees, yep, now it works. So we do have to have Google Fonts enabled if we want to see the preview in the preview iframe, unfortunately. So let's change that back to enter, tight, and for the body, let's just go open sans, just to keep it simple. Okay, so enter tight and open sans. That's our typography. Here's our example. So enter tight, I actually quite like that. It's just the maybe slightly heavier, No, I'll go back to, I actually liked it at 400. I liked it there. Okay, there's a little preview here if you haven't got any text in your editor. Now the next thing is it's detected that we've selected Google Fonts here, right? Which we don't have a custom font for in Bricks. So we get a create custom fonts button because it's detected that. And what it will do is when we hit create custom fonts, it will go off and it'll have a look at the API and it'll see what font weights and are available for that, and does it include italic variants, and it'll only show the available weights and it'll only show this include italic variants if that exists for that family, that particular font family. So let's say for the enter type, we really don't want the skinny ones. Maybe we're on 400, we will go 600. Let's just go 600, 800. We don't want stacks. Okay, the more you add, the bigger your. It's actually going to create a variable font for this one, I happen to know. And the bigger your variable font will be. Let's say we do want italics because we might use that as an effect in our header. Our body, open sans, starts at 300. We only really want 400. 700 and 800, and we want to include the italic variants for that. We only want our Latin character set. Typically that's all we'll need. These extra ones will add additional fonts, and these are for special characters, like if you're going to use a language that has O's with 2 dots on top and things like that, and you want it to be styled in this font, then you need the Latin extended. Okay, if you don't use those characters, or you don't care if they render in the system font, then you don't need Latin extended. So I'd say 99.9, maybe 99%, you only need Latin. Okay, so we're going to hit install, and when we do that, it's going to go off to the Google Fonts API. It's going to download our WAF files, and it's going to create custom fonts for us automatically. So I'm going to hit the install, and if all goes well and our information is correct, we get a little green pop-up telling us that it's all done. And you can see now the name has custom on it. Okay, so it's changed to custom. If I close that and have a look at my font manager, here's my font manager there. I can see that I've got 2 custom Google fonts. Now, for some reason, this weirdly says I've got 12 styles. If I go in there and have a look, I've actually got 6. I go back and it updates to say that actually I know you've only got 6. So that's just some weird quirk in here. Okay, so we've done Intertight and Open Sans, where these are Google fonts hosted locally from our hosting through Bricks Custom Fonts, and all we had to do was select them and hit Create Custom Fonts, and then select the weights that we wanted and the other options that we wanted, and that's done. We have set up our custom fonts, so we have our typography sizes done, our custom fonts we've got done, and that's all ready to go. Now we've got some colors. Let's point at that and go to colors. Here's our colors there. Let's say our primary, we want to change that to maybe a sort of greenish color there maybe, but that's a little bit too bright. Maybe that's our color, this teal color. I'm actually going to copy that to the clipboard too, so I'll show you a little trick with that. Our variant here, that doesn't look like it would go well with the green, so we'll actually move that along to maybe it's that kind of green as our secondary. Okay, and that's it. Now on our surface here, I'm going to edit that, and that's just grey. That's just grey, right? I'm going to paste that, paste my primary in there, and that we don't want our surface to be a primary. We set the primary, always set the saturation, sorry, the lightness or limits to 50, and then we're going to drop down the saturation so that we've got a slightly tinted grey, and it depends on the hue that you're using on what that should be. So I'm going to start at maybe 7. And you can see it's got a little tint in it. If we go to 0, it's grey. If we go to 5, it's got a little bit of a tint. 6, 7, that's about right. If we get to 8, it's probably a little bit too tinted for me. So I go 7%. I think 7% works nicely with this one, where it's not quite grey, it's slightly tending towards our primary. That's a preference that I have. Right. Now the other thing we're going to do is we're going to create a style guide here, and at the moment it's just going to have these colors here in it. Now the style guides are automatically generated, and when you automatically generate something, whether it's AI or whether it's fixed code, it needs to know what to include and what to exclude. So to do that, we need to have some way of identifying that, which is where your prefixes come in. So we need to add BRXP if we want to include this with our automatic creation of our template. And look, we're not typing in these things anyway, we're just using selectors and type aheads, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use BRXP, and I'm going to add a tertiary. And I'm going to select the color for that, and let's make it a sort of an orangey color, maybe this orangey color here, add that, and label our transparencies, dark shades and light shades. I'm going to drag this handle up just so it's visually in the right place in this editor here, in this view here. So we just added a tertiary color. Okay, how quick was that? Save and close. Now we're going to delete our color showcase. Going to go back into our Bricks Wireframes tools, and we're going to get a copy of our colors again, and we're going to paste that back in. I'm going to probably spend the most time on this because this is where you got to start up. Now we've already got these here. We can just reject those or accept them because we haven't made any changes. It doesn't matter at this stage. I'm going to say reject all because we've already got those. Here's our color showcase. Now we have our updated primary color, updated secondary color. We've got our surface with the tint. We've got our tertiary, and then we've got our contextual colors here. So that's all done. Now there's one more step. You notice these here have, for example, on our primary, on our L1 background, we've got a light text. On our L2 background, we've got a dark text. This is automatically calculated where it looks at a light, white or near white, and says, does the light color or the dark color have the highest contrast ratio against this background, and it creates a variable, an A11Y variable for that. Okay, so it doesn't mean it passes your A11Y contrast ratios, it means that is the best chance because that is the one that has the highest contrast. Okay, and we need to update that because we've added a color and we've changed our primary color there. So if we go back into our Bricks Wireframes tools, we've got a button here, recalculate A11Y colors. What do we want our light color to be? So we're going to say if we're putting a slightly off white, or we can make that fully white. Now I prefer the slightly off white and slightly off black. If you prefer white and black, put FFFF in there and 000 in there and have white and black. I prefer this, and this is going to use that to calculate which has the highest contrast ratio against the background color. So I hit go, and it's added 21 and updated 7. Save, save, save. And what we see here now is on our primary, see the primary was white before, and now the primary text has gone black because it's worked out, well, near black, because it's worked out that that is the best contrast against that background. Our D1 through to D3 have gone, well, the dark is the best contrast. I would say this one here is very unlikely to pass A11Y contrast ratios, but that one has the best chance. And then we switch to the light text when we get to these darker shades here. Okay, and it does that for all of these except for the transparencies, because transparency we don't know what's going to be behind it. Right, and then we go into our little code here and edit that and enable that. render without wrapper, save, have a look at the front end, and we have some typography. We have some colors, and these are all click to hover. That's what that little thing that we just enabled was, that code. And these have got click to copy for our actual colors and our A11Y suggested color on top of that. And we don't have that on the transparency, we just have the actual root colors. All right, so that's those done. Now we have a few other things in there, which is I'm just going to dump them in the editor. So if we go in here, we've got also our spacing and radii and our buttons. Just going to dump that in there. And we've got our buttons. Dump that in there. Reject all. We haven't changed anything yet. And let's go and grab our shadows. I didn't need to hit save then, so I didn't make any changes. Okay. Does that work? I didn't click it. Okay. So now we've got typography, colors, spacing and radii, borders, buttons, and we've got some shadow variants. Now to edit our buttons, for example, here, where do you think we'd go? We go into here, we go into our theme elements. In our theme elements, we would go down to buttons, and with our buttons, we were going to go to the border, for example, here. Make sure we're linked, and just do a radius of 2xs, that'll do. And we've got a small radius on there now. Hit save, close that, and we've just put a border on our buttons. Okay, we can go into the buttons, we can change these. These are all the A11Y text calculated collars, so they should be the best that you can get, but you can manually set those if you want to. But you just basically set those, and there is your buttons done. Our shadows are a little bit different. We have a little design variables modal here, and the reason we got that is because there's a lot to change for these. So what we have here is our wireframes shadow, and we just have a very simple selector for that, so you can change it for color if you want it, and this is going to affect all Bricks wireframes. And what we want to do is just, let's say we just want to reduce the amount of shadow. For that, we can just drag the opacity of that down, and that just affected that shadow there, and that is that done. Then we have these, I'm going to drag this to the other side here, my mind works better that way. We have these tinted shadows. So with this one here, we have, if you've got a primary light background, you want a primary dark color for your shadow so that it blends better than black, and the opposite goes for your primary dark variant background. You want a light variant there. So each of these, we have if you set your opacity to 1, that's the actual color we've selected. Let's say we want more on the light, so we can go in there and set that to L6, and we've got more going on there with the glow. We can set all of our offsets here as well. And then when you're happy with it, you just drop your opacity back to what makes most sense for you, so you can kind of see that there's shadow there, but it's not overwhelming. When you're happy, hit apply, save that, save this, and that is your framework set up, and that is your ready to go. So if this isn't production ready, I don't know what is. There's probably some extra things that you might want to do and add, but this is pretty much what I would suspect most people need for 90% of what they do. Okay, so let's head back to the home now. We've got a style, and you can see we've got nothing here. We're going to edit with bricks, and what you do for here is entirely up to you. So we can use a wireframe now. We can go in here and we can pick a what are we going to do? Pick a hero. Maybe we'll just pick this one here. It's nice and simple. Insert that. And we have a hero section as a wireframe with our button colors that are coming from our Bricks wireframes, which has been converted. So that is a very simple way of doing it. We actually go and enable all my other settings here so we can start playing with them. So I'm going to enable my BEM tools, HCL tag, Keyboard shortcuts, I don't know if we need that for this, but we'll enable it. Preview tools, attribute bar, CSS panel. In here we're going to disable our breakpoints for bricks because we want a single point of truth for our CSS. We're going to structure panel, CSS type of heads, isolation mode, element shortcuts, lots and lots. And again, all these green ones are free, the orange ones are paid. The other one I'm going to enable is in my convert UI to CSS and our bricks modifications. Let's just override our CSS for our bricks animations because they're a bit wild, and this just tames them. And our code snippets, we're going to go in here, not our code snippets, so CSS type heads, enable our CSS type head patterns, which are some people call recipes. I've called them patterns because we can use them in different ways to recipes, which I'll show you. Hit save, close that, and you can see we've got a lot more buttons now. A lot more buttons, and the ones that are all our theme color are our features. If you want to change those colors, we go in there, we go into our style, let's go into our buttons here, UI buttons, change that there. Let's say we want, for this site, we want this kind of purplish color. Actually, that'll clash with the, maybe we want this, maybe this peachy color. Okay, so that's going to be our button background there. We better change that to be something a bit different. Maybe that. Copy that to the light mode for the builder. Something like, again, this isn't a tutorial. This isn't going to go into it. I'm just showing how quickly we can do this. Now we've just changed how we look, so we can identify what is BRXProd and what is bricks. Okay. So there we go. We're up and running and ready to go. So that is the first way you can just chuck things in there. I'm now going to show you a better way of building, and we're going to create our own hero, and we're going to create some components for this kind of thing here, because this is really, really common. So the first thing we'll look at is responsive layouts and being able to figure out the widths that we need for that and all that sort of stuff. Now we do have one issue here. If I have a look at my CSS panel, which is draggable and you can detach it to another window, with bricks, see this got this 100% up here, that's for the content width you've got there. Once we get content width is too small, it drops that percentage, so it can scale the contents inside there. And the bricks JavaScript hijacks the height, so it changes the CSS scale, but it hijacks the height of the browser, which means that we end up with a little bit of a gap here because our calculation gets overridden by bricks. So at the moment there's nothing I can do about that. If you scale down where your sidebars are too wide and the bricks preview scales, then I can't change any of that, unfortunately, at the moment. So we're going to go back to here. Everything's fine. All right, so let's start by entering a section. Now, when you've got content to add a section with bricks, you would have to come and hit on the plus over here and then go and find your section over here. With BRXProd, on the top bar here, we've got to add section. Okay, I'm just going to drag that section to the top here. I'm going to call that my home hero. Okay, and in my container, I'm going to use some keyboard shortcuts here. So I'm going to add a div, which is going to be my grid. Inside my div, I'm going to add 2 blocks, and I'll explain why a little bit later. Inside our block 1, I'm going to add a div, and inside block 2, I'm going to add a image. I've done this many times, so this is why I'm just very quick at it. And this is our keyboard shortcuts, which is these things here, and these all have editable keyboard shortcuts. So, you know, container, block, div, CBD. Basic text is A, a heading is an H. We also have tabs, and we can create additional tabs. We've got Alt A as the author. We can create tabs here, we can edit these, we can add to these, we can even put components on these if we want to, but we'll come back to that another time. So we've got a bit of a structure there. I'm going to call this my grid and press tab. I'm going to call that my content. Press tab. I'm going to call that my header. That's my body. I'm just using the tab key. And footer. And I'm going to call this one my media wrapper. And I'm going to call this my feature image. So you can see how quickly we can work through this. Okay, so we've got a bit of a set up there. I'm going to go to my home hero now, point my mouse there, click on auto BEM, click on auto BEM again, and that's a double opt-in, and that's just created all my classes. So if I do point now and go audit, I've got a home hero with a container, grid, content, header. So I've got a BEM block and all my BEM elements all done for me. Okay. And if I rename this, it's going to rename that all automatically for me. But we're just talking about structure mode. Now, there's one thing I forgot to enable, so I'm going to go into into WordPress, go into my plugins, and I'm going to enable instant images. Okay, now because I've made a change, I'm just going to hit the save. I'm just going to hit reload here. Okay, so now if we click on our image, we select the image, we're instant images. I'm just going to grab any landscape image there. So I see here, and of course all the first ones they show me are all portraits. Let's go in here, that'll do. Insert that, and we want that to be full. There's a full, actually we don't want that to be full, we're going to use it as a feature image, so we just make that, say, medium large. We have a feature image there. Okay, let's start looking at our CSS for our layout. This panel here, the CSS panel, is the most powerful part of this entire plugin. This is where probably about 85% of my work has gone into making this much, much easier to use. So not only do we have the CSS panel here, but we can actually detach that to a own window. We can drag that to another screen and get pretty much all the features that we get from the panel when it's in here. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is styling. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. From our home hero here, it is aware of all of our child elements. So I can target my grid by doing just a capital R underscore, and it's going to give me a list of all of my BEM elements. If I want to target the grid there, I can just do DIS tab, GRI tab. Okay, we get a grid helper. So we want to do a baseline of stretch. I want to do grid template columns, GTC tab, GRID 2. Let's do a grid 2. Okay, and see how my cursor, it automatically put the semicolon in there, but my cursor is to the left of it. If it's just to the left of your semicolon, you press enter, it skips over the semicolon to the next line. So I don't have to keep trying to move my cursor around to get it in the right place. If I type gap and then gap, there is my grid gap. This is all coming from Bricks, the wireframes template that we converted, and because this is a Bricks variable, it knows it's a Bricks variable and it puts a little B there, so we can click on that, we can actually go to that and we can edit that if we want to. Okay, so that's a really quick way to get to the actual variable that we used. All right, so we've got a grid gap there. Okay, now we can do it that way and style everything from the one location. I'm just going to copy that, or we can go to the grid itself there and just take that grid off there, and we can do the same thing from the actual element, which in some ways I prefer. It keeps it a little bit cleaner unless you're creating variables which are going to affect the styling as variants, which is a different question altogether. Okay, so we've got a simple grid. So let's just go to our content. We haven't actually added anything in our content, have we? Header, we're just going to add an H. Body, we're going to add an A. Footer, we're going to add a B. Not a B, sorry, a U for button. And we're just going to name those. So heading, we'll call that our lead. Just leave that as button. We're going to add an A in here as well. We're going to call that our tagline. Okay, so on our tagline, let's just change that to tagline. Tagline, and we'll just leave that as it is. And now we'll go to the top here and run our auto BEM, so we get classes on those as well. Alright, so we're cooking with gas here. So we got that going on there. We're going to change our heading there to be a heading 1, and we might even make that our hero type, so it's the hero size, whatever's applied to that in the theme. And you can see here I made these as divs. Divs are completely unstyled in Bricks. Blocks are a flex row, which we give a default gap of content gap, and there's also some media queries built into Bricks that change the that they drop it to a column when you get below whatever breakpoint, and we don't want that generally. So when you're using it for a single column, it's fine. When you're using for multi-column, I would just say use a Bricks div and then style it up from there. Okay, so that is the very basic setup ready to go. Now, what we now can do is say, for example, on our content here, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to, on our content, I'm going to go R, and I'm going to set up display to flex, because it's a basic content. Yep, that's correct. It's already display flex. We want to make sure it's a column, and then we're going to use the helper, and we can align to the bottom, or we can align to the center. Okay, so we've got a little helper here. Another one of our features, a little helper here, and it comes up on all the related properties. So this is a flex that's going to come up on all those related properties there. All right, so that's that. Let's do a border BD of 1px solid, and we'll use a transparency T4. So we're going to use our surface T4, and then we're going to do a border radius BDR, and we're going to set that to RAD, radius M, and we need some padding in there, PAD, tab, content gap. So I'm going to do gap, and there's our content gap. All right, so we've just basically styled that up. Let's do a background BG. So anything that you could think of that might be a shortcut is probably a shortcut, and it gives you some examples here what else it might be. Hit the tab, and we're going to put that as a T1, so we can use a surface T1. So let's get a little bit of transparency on our neutral sitting on top there, and we're styled up there. Right, let's go to our feature image. I think we just want the border radius BDR, or radius M. Just put a border radius on that. Really simple, right? So it's starting to style this thing up really simply, and we have not touched the Bricks UI whatsoever for our settings. So the next thing we're going to do is look at layout. So let's come back to our grid, and we basically set this as a static grid. Okay, there's many ways we can do this. So I'm going to just delete that. I'm going to use one of our patterns here. So the patterns are basically we use a pipe symbol and then a shortcut, and that gives us a output. So it's this grid auto fit, for example. If we look at that grid auto fit, so our pattern is G-A-fit dash and then a number. That number gets translated into this here, and that's what gets output with that number. So that's a lot of words, so let's just show an example. So G-A-fit and then a number. Okay, so if I do a pipe G-A-fit dash 400 tab, we've got a display grid auto fit 400. Go to our grid, we want the stretch on that, and we want to put a gap on there of grid gap. Okay, so we're back to pretty much where we were before, but we've done it in a different route. Now if I go to the edge of my preview, I get the different bar. So on the left I've got the grey Bricks one to move their panels. If we go just to the right, we're on this coloured one, which is part of our preview. If we drag that, we can see what's happening. Now watch the number on this here, and when that gets below 400, it drops to the next line. And that's what this grid auto fit is. I'm just going to format that grid auto fit 400. So that's one way of making it responsive. Okay. Now the next way of making it responsive is to use this completely differently. We're going to actually control this, but what we want to do is we want to use a container query. So we want to set our container above us to be a container type of inline size. And we've got another little shortcut in here, which is a PC for container, make parent a container. Okay, so if I just do a pipe PC tab, it's made my parent, which is the container, a parent of inline size. Okay, now if I now do R tab and I do display grid, okay, and we'll do the same here with the so we want that line item stretch, we'll just do a gap of our grid gap. We probably should set our width 100%. Okay, and we're going to do a grid template columns now, GTC. Oh, we'll do a grid 2. Actually, we've got to do a grid 2-1. Grid 2-1. Okay, so we got a typical sort of a larger area for our copy, smaller area for our image. All right, now we've got our parent being a container or an inline container. Watch what happens when we now shrink our size. We get down to this point here and go, oh, that image is getting a little bit too small there, right? See these labels here? I'm going to tame those a little bit by pointing at the layout widths here, and I'm saying, I don't want that on the divs, I don't want that on the blocks, I only want on the containers and the sections. Okay, so now I can see if I roll my mouse up here, that's the container. That's my container above my grid. Now if I click on that, it's going to copy a container query to the clipboard. I paste it into here, and there's my, and we can obviously change that. So what we want to do is we want to override this. So I can just do a GTC of grid 2. Okay, so at that point there, it becomes a grid 2. Now the other way, which is a way I recommend doing this because it gives you a lot more scope when you're reusing these, is that what we're going to do is we're going to use another one of our features in here, which we right click on those grid template columns there, and we say variabilize. And that's created a settings block, and it's created a variable, which is a locally scoped variable, using our class name through to that point there, and then the property name. It's given us an override, so we can override this from above. If we use this with a variant, we can override that. I've got a plane flying over, sorry guys, I can't control that. And then there's our default value there. So how we change that now, see that's set to, that automatically made that grid template columns as being our locally scoped variable. So now what we do when we override is we do -- underscore, it's got a type ahead, we want that to be our, we want that to be grid 2. Okay, so we're overriding the variable. So we're doing the same thing, we're just using a variable to do it. And then we have a bunch of settings here for our defaults. Okay, now we can also, I'm going to go even trickier here. I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to create, add a alt state. Okay, now I'm just going to change that there. From alt, I'm going to change that to be medium. Okay, and I'm going to change that to be medium. And then I'm going to say that is a grid 2. Okay, so now we've got an alternate for that. I can now, instead of typing that in there, I just do a medium. Here's my hero medium, and I've done exactly the same thing, but now I've got a single settings block. Okay, so I change that to be a grid 3, and what happens at that point there? It becomes a grid 3, which is not what we want. Grid 1. I've got a single point of truth in a settings block here where I could change these. I don't have to go looking through the CSS and try and find the rule. Okay, so that's why we do that. Now we're going to add another alt there, so I'm just going to add another alt. And how you do this is completely up to you. Okay, so we go alt and we go small, column small, and we go grid 1. Okay, we then going to shrink this down and go, when do we want to turn this into a grid 1? When our containers are around there, maybe a bit smaller, maybe around the 520, 530. So we copy that to the clipboard, come down here, and do the same thing where we're now going to do a underscore, -- underscore, and we want our home hero grid template columns to be our SM. Okay, There we go. So we've got complete control over that, and we've used some really cool features in here to automatically convert things into variables. We've created an alt. If you're using hover, etc., you've got hover state, active state, selected state, disabled state, or add an alt if you don't know what it's going to be. You can just stick whatever you want in there. Okay, so we've got complete control over that layout by using container queries quite simply. All right, so that is that done. Now what we're going to do is look at a few extra features in here. Now, by the way, this is all collapsible. So if I collapse all the blocks are collapsible. So if you're going to put a lot of CSS in here, you can quite easily do that. All right, now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at the styling of the background of this home hero. So I'm going to go to the home hero up here. I'm going to do R, and I'm going to do my POS, REL, ISO. Actually, let's set a background color, BG of, I don't know, D8. So we're going to do surface D8. Okay, let's do a color, set our default color of L8. So we're going to set a color of our surface L8. There's our surface L8 default color. Now we've got a base ready to go. I'm going to add some additional stuff. This is all nested CSS. So I'm going to add a, gradient in the background. So I'm going to just do a and : B for a before, and then press the tab. You see the little type head, hit the tab. Now I've got a before, because I've set my parent to position relative isolation isolate. I can do a negative Z index. If I do ZI minus 100, and that's still going to sit on top of our parent. So just to test that, I'm going to do a utility bg-r tab, background red, and it's going to put red on top of the background but not on top of our copy. So we know we're in the right spot. So I'm going to delete that. Use another feature here, which is our gradient generator. It has a simple UI. These are just for preview, so you can see what that's going to look like there. It has no effect on the actual gradient. Okay, so we're going to go from, let's go from our primary, actually do a D5, primary D5 to transparent, and we'll stick you up in here in the right hand corner, up the top there. And we're going to add another one. So another one, and we'll make that our D5, our secondary D5, and we'll stick you down in the right hand corner there. And we can play with sizes and shapes and whatever you want there. Okay, so we've got a couple of gradients there, and that looks okay. So we will see in here is a whole bunch of stuff here, which is the settings for that gradient generator, which we can clean up when we finish just by clicking on remove comments and say remove all the comments, and that's going to clean it up. We just lose our settings if we want to come back to it. Okay, now we can say, well, actually that's a little bit too much. So let's back it off, OP tab 0.3. Okay, opacity 0.3, 0.2. That's more like what we want. All right. So we've used our before, collapse that. Let's use our after. Use and after tab, and we're going to do the Z index on that. ZI. Whoops. And the last. Whoops. Messing up my typing here. ZI. Z index of, that's why I need this, because I can't type for shit. So we're going to put a texture on here. Now our previous one, I think we set it minus 100. So let's just set this at say minus 90. That'll do. Again, we automatically get our semicolon. And by the way, all of these features here, that if you like them, great. If you don't like them, you go into the settings here. You go into your CSS panel settings here. Here's all your features. And if you don't like them, you just turn them off. Okay, you don't like the variable cycling, which is something else I haven't shown you yet. You don't like the auto wrap. You don't like the class selector type of head. You don't like the automatic semicolon. You just turn them off. Okay, you just switch them off, and that's done. So pretty much, I've tried to make it as much as I can. Every feature is controllable. The defaults are a sensible default, and then you can control what happens from there. So this time here, we're going to create a gradient, sorry, not a gradient, a texture. So I'm going to go to the texture here. I'm going to use a grid. I'm going to use my primary color, primary there, and my background, I'm going to make that transparent. There it is there. Very simple. Maybe it's a bit too big. Make that tile size a little bit smaller. There we go. And our line is just 1 pixel. You can change that, obviously. We can use a custom SVG, or we can use some of these presets up here. So that's an SVG. Done. Okay, so we've got a texture in the background. Now, something really cool here is that this is actually a background image, which means that if we put our cursor after the end of that pattern there, we can use our gradient generator as a mask. Okay, so it's in the center there, maybe it's at the top, make it a bit bigger, a bit smaller. We've just masked the texture that we put in there. And again, if we don't like it, if it's too much, we can just set the opacity to say 0.5. There we go. So we've just created our own hero very quickly. It would have been much quicker if I wasn't yakking while we're doing this. I'm just going to show you it's responsive, fully responsive. We've got control over it. So at that point, it's a 2-1. At that point, it's a 2-column grid. And at this point here, it is a 1-column grid. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is adding a background image. So instead of using this texture in the background here with our color, I'm going to show you how to create a background image. Let's create an option on this. So I'm going to just collapse that. I'm going to duplicate this whole thing. So I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to rename that to call this a image hero. I'll call this a BG hero. And when I hit rename, you're going to see something really interesting. Because we've already got our home hero with the same class as I hit rename, ooh, what do we got here? We've got another structure here which already has home hero. If we rename that, we're going to mess up the other structure there. So what do we want to do? Do I rename this, or do we want to create a copy? I would say in this case we want to create a copy. All right, so we've got a completely different set now of BEM classes, because we've automatically renamed that and created a copy of it. So we're not going to affect our home hero now. So here's our BG hero there. And in this case, I want to change the background. Okay, I want to set a different background. So I'm going to go back up into here and on our BG hero. This is where I like, when you have two screens, I like just detaching this to another window, and there we go. So it's going to leave all those there, leave those there. We're not going to worry about that. Actually, do we even need this before? I don't think we need that now, because we're going to put an image in the background. We don't need that. We're just going to use the texture. Okay, so let's create a utility set now for a background image. So the first thing I'm going to do in there, I'm going to add an image, and I'm going to set that to be a BG, I'm going to call it BG media. BG media, and we're going to select an image here, and I'm going to grab another instant image. Doesn't like landscape at the moment, so let's see. Probably should just search for landscape. Oh, well, if it doesn't come up on the next one, there we go. We'll use this as our background image. Anything that was let's looking for anything landscape. So we've got a background image there, which will be full width. And we have an image just sitting there now as a BG image. And it's already got, actually hasn't got a class on it yet. So we're going to go to our BG hero. We're going to create a utility class, which we're going to call has BG media. Okay. Whoop. And because I spelled that wrong, I just double click in there, has, enter. And that's rename the class. So that's a really cool way of renaming class. Just double click, edit, enter. Okay. On that, I'm going to copy that name. I'm going to go to my BG media. I'm going to add a new class. I'm going to paste that in there and do 2 underscores BG dash media. So just keeping standard BEM naming. All right. Now you're going to see something really cool from this hero here. Now, if I'm in the has BG media, okay, and I do a root, I get a root block there. If I do a root underscore, it's going to show me the BG media because it knows that that is a child element of my has BG media. Does that make sense? So I'm going to firstly start by assuming that we don't have any other styles to set us. So I'm going to set our position to relative, isolation to isolate. And this is all real time. I am crap at typing, which is really why I create a lot of these features. We're going to set our overflow to clip. And if you don't know what it is, just press the control or command tab, space, and it'll show you all of the properties that it thinks that are available, so you can select from that if you want to. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to target our BG media. So I'm going to do r underscore BG media. Okay, the formatting on that was a bit weird, so I'm just going to format that. And with our BG media, what do we want to do? We want to set our position to absolute. We want to set our Z index, ZI, to minus 100. Okay, so it's behind the copy. We're then going to set our width to 100%, our height to 100%, our object fit. See, all these are just typing it. You start typing it, press tab, it finds it, press tab. And if I don't know what it is, control space, there it is there. Oh, that's right, it needs to be cover. Okay, so it's really, really super intuitive. Now this may be a figure or a picture tag, or it might be a wrapper, so we're going to add in an image just in case, and we're going to add these same attributes here to the image, paste that in, just format that. Now we've affected the BG media, so I can go to that BG media. I'm going to lock that class, go to my home hero, go to that, I'm going to lock that class. So these are locked now, so you can't edit those anymore. And now I'm going to show you something really, really cool with that. So let's now, on our home hero, not the home hero, on this BG hero, we're going to add a background. What do we got on there? What's on our after? That's our texture. Let's do our before. And we can do this still use the UI here if we want to. If we're going to use those gradients, we can still use that. Okay, I'm going to use purely CSS here. So I'm going to say on our before, we want to have Z index of minus 50. Oh, minus 50. And we want to set our BG to, I'm going to use a hex for here. So I'm going to use 000000, and then maybe 22, 44, 55, 66. Okay, so we're just setting a basic background texture on that, or we can do a gradient. We can use our gradients. Let's do a gradient, and let's do a gradient there, conical gradient, and we're just going to set that to be black there. Put that in the wrong place. I did. Okay. Okay. Now I've just got that. If I mess something up here, has BG media. Is that just Bricks rendering? Why is our BG media? Has BG media. If it cover BG media, Just going to do a refresh. Yeah, I was just doing a bunch of undo. Sometimes when you do that in Bricks, it messes some things up. So I'm just going to do a refresh here. No, we've broken something here. Why is our inset missing? Let's go back into there. Oh. Right before. What did I break? What did I break? So I hate using undo in Bricks. Always break stuff. Okay, section has BG media. Just going to make sure that is there. Has BG media. Position relative, isolation, isolate, clip. Okay, then we will have a image which has our has BG media. Absolute. We've lost our inset. We've lost our inset somehow. It must be in the undos. So I'm just going to unlock that. That is weird. Oh, I'm on the wrong thing. Was I editing the wrong thing? Has BG media. Okay, I've accidentally deleted it out of here somehow. Must be with the undo. Inset 0, and we're fixed again. Okay, let's go back to our BG hero. On our hero, we're going to go back to our before. Do that again. So go and before Z index of -50. Okay, let's do a gradient. So go there and do a gradient. Stick that up there. Make it black and drop the opacity just a little bit. Okay, and then, oh, by the way, we can use a matte here if we're not, if we're using a dark color, we can use a matte so we can see what does that look like against that matte there. And that just affects the preview. So that's it there. You want to add another one. Actually, let's just make that a bit bigger and let's add another one. Put that there. Maybe we'll make that a black as well. Make you a bit bigger. So we can sort of interact with these things here so that we can get our text working without having those, tired old, single linear backgrounds or whatever. Okay, so that's that done. So we're happy with all this. We're done with that. We can say clean up your comments, remove your comments, and that just cleaned up all of those generator comments in there, and our heading is done. All right, so we're at a point now where we have a hero we've created with a background image. We've got a hero we've created with a background texture, and if we look at the responsiveness, they're both exactly the same. Okay. And that all works beautifully. Now that we have the has BG image, we can also apply it here. So in that's actually set to, let's just try something here. So I'm going to set a min height on this. So I'm going to do R, have a min height. I'm going to try this out. I'll say 300 px. That's the media wrapper, just to see how this actually works. Now what we're going to do is on our media wrapper we are going to add a has BG Media, and then on our feature image, we're going to add BG Media, so has BG Media Media, and that will stretch it to fit within that space, right? So now, as we move this around, instead of that, see how it just fits inside the space? So now that we've created that cool little utility, we can apply that to any group where we've got a wrapper and a image, and it'll automatically scales inside of that wrapper nicely. All right. So on the front end here, which one were we doing it on? I think it was on this, the second one we did it on. Let's have a look. Come on, Chrome. Chrome's struggling when we do this. I think we did it on the second one we did. So see this first one here, we can see as that scales, the image gets smaller and it gets out of alignment. Whereas on this one, it never changes the height there because we've set a min height. Okay, and even when we get down to one column, there's a min height of 300 there. So yeah, all right. So what else can I show you while I'm in here? Let me have a quick look at the. Let me just close it. I think the dev tools are really giving me hell with Chrome these days. What else can we have a look at while we're here? So we've covered quite a bit of stuff here in this one video. It might be a little bit too long if we keep going, but I'm just going to have a quick look at features in here. So we've got the Bricks enhancements. That is the Bricks enhancements are, for example, let's say this image here. Have we got enough to scroll? We have. That image there, we're going to add a interaction to it. And we're going to say when, and by the way, this is a BRXProd feature. It's telling us that we're actually selecting this on the class. So any element that has the background media will have the same interaction. We don't want that in this case because we want to copy it across. So we deselect, go back into there, and it tells us that we're editing at the element level. All right, so we're going to add one in there. I'm going to add a into viewports, and we're going to set that, just leave it on 0 for now. There's a whole bunch of discussion on that. And we want to start an animation of fading up, fade in, maybe fade in left. And that's a simple animation, right? So let's save that. Have a look at the front end. And we see that one there when it comes into the viewport. It fades in left from the left very slightly. And the reason it's small is because we did this little thing here to override the Bricks animations, and that changed the way they work. The default ones are wild. By the way, if you have a look in the CSS panel here, we can actually edit our theme CSS, and you can see this is where it put all of the animation overrides. Okay, so we can actually change a lot of that. This is a whole different tutorial when we talk about how we manage the animations. We've got some classes which helps you with this as well. But you can manage all that through here because you can edit your theme CSS directly right there. Okay, so what we're going to do here is say we've just added on that feature image, we've added this interaction. Now this is something that you won't see in Bricks by default. So anything that's our color is our feature. So we can copy this individual interaction, or we can copy all of the interactions from that by clicking on there, go to another element. So I'm going to go to this one up here, and we're still in there. That's actually on the automatically selected the class. So we're going to go out of that. We don't want to select the class. We go back in there, and we want to just paste. Just lost it. Why did we lose it? Ooh, that's something I need to fix. So I'm going to paste that in there. Oh, that was copy, sorry. Let me go back out of there. So I got to get used to my own tools. There's the paste there. So paste that interaction in there. No, because we copied the wrong one. Okay, so let's go back to the feature image here. It's not, I've got it automatically selecting the ID, which is not what we want here. So we want to go to the non-ID. We want to copy that interaction. We want to go over to the other feature image, but we don't want that on the class. We want it on the ID, and we want to paste that in there, and that's given us the same animation there on there. Come back here, and now we've got the same animation on that because we've copied and pasted that interaction across. Now that's the same for conditionals, and it's the same for attributes. All right, so speaking of attributes, if we select an element, we get a little attribute bar tag, and we also get that down here on our CSS panel as well. So we basically, either one of these go to the same place. That opens up the attribute bar. This is a really cool little panel. There's a little help icon there. I'm not sure why that's ended up on the center there. With this attribute bar, I'm just going to turn on the show confirmation here. And I'm going to rename that ID to home hero. And I'm going to add a class to that called test class. And I'm going to set an ARIA attribute or ARIA label, our home intro. I mean, I'm not saying you should put this ARIA label. I'm just showing you can. Okay. So whenever you put these things in here, this is like when you're writing a CSS selector. So the correct way is you can only have one ID, and your classes have to be joined. Okay. If I try putting in an extra class like .test, and I press the enter key, it's going to go, you can't do that. That doesn't meet the standards, right? That doesn't meet the standards at all. If I try adding a second ID, if I go TID, enter, you can't have multiple IDs, right? So it tells you the format there, and then you press a space, and then it's any attribute. So if we have another attribute called data test, and then data test2, data test2 equals test. We've got all those on there now. If I press the enter key anywhere on this, it's going to tell us what it's going to do because I set the confirmation. It's going to rename that ID. It's going to add back the home hero class, and it's going to create a new class called test class, and it's going to set these attributes. Apply changes. We've got a new class called test class. We've got home hero. We've got our ID renamed. We've got a set of attributes that we've added, and we can copy those attributes individually or entirely and paste those onto another element if we want to. So this attribute bar is really, really cool because instead of having to go, I'm going to rename this, I'm going to add that class, I'm going to set this attribute, you just go in there in a single string, press the enter key when you're done, and that will update it. I'm going to change that to new test. Enter. Apply. Now it's changed the attribute to new test. Okay, so it's a really quick way of changing your ID, classes, ARIA attributes, data attributes, whatever you want is all on that one bar. So that is another really cool little feature there. What else is there in here? So the BEM tools, that's a big one to go through. HTML tag select, that's a simple one. Abbreviate tags or don't abbreviate tags. You'll see at the moment when we look here, our sections are just saying SEC. If we don't abbreviate or say section, I like this because we know what they are and they take up a lot less space. What else do we have there? The content debug, preview tools, we already looked at, the attribute bar, CSS panel, structure panel features, what's on here? This is just the coloring and styling of it. And CSS type heads we've kind of talked about. Isolation mode, that is a really simple one. If you've got multiples of these, you just want to work on this one. So you point your mouse at the top level and you get this alt click, and I'm just working on just that. That's the only element I want to see. You can alt click again or press the escape key and that gets us out of it. The other ones in here, what have we got? The font pairing, we can turn that off because we already used it. AI tools, this is a whole other, it's probably here the least attention. It's got some pretty cool completion, image generation, all that sort of stuff, but there are no UIs for the AI completion yet. I just did that using some shortcuts. I'm going to not talk about this just yet because this is kind of a side thing, why I put it into the experimental. So many changes, so many new things coming out for AI. I thought, let's put this aside for now. It works, but it's different to any other AI that you use, and I won't talk about that too much just here. All right, so that's those. We'll skip over our code snippets for the moment, but persistent settings. This here is the way our plugin works. It saves all of your settings for your user on this site to local storage so that it's really quick. As soon as you load the browser, all of your settings are there. It then, once it's loaded, it then synchronizes everything that is in your user profile from the server. So when you change a setting, it saves it to local settings so it applies immediately, and then it syncs that with your user profile, which means if you go to any other browser or any other device and log in, you should have all the same settings, all right, for your user on that URL. That's the theory. It needs to be tested more thoroughly. It works well for me, but if you just want to, you're out of sync, you just want to go, oh, look, for some reason it's my local settings are not the same, clear your local settings, and that will resync from your user profile. It should automatically do that when you log in anyway, but it'll resync from your user profile and keep it all in check. Clear transients. Some of our features have transients, and like for example, our Bricks class scanner, which is another thing we haven't spoken about. Every time the Bricks version changes, it'll scan for Bricks classes, and I'll show you what I mean shortly. And sometimes that doesn't work. You can clear that, and it's going to rescan. Reset all settings means put everything back to default, both here and in our user profile. Okay. And then we've got options, or what do we actually want to sync to our user profile? So we might want to just keep the AI providers local. We don't want that sync between all of our browsers. We don't want to sync that to our user profile. We just uncheck it and it won't sync it to your user profile. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You can change all that in there. We have code snippets where there's a whole other conversation that we can have. This is so many things to this. This is probably another 2 hours of going through what we can do with this because it's so cool. All right, so that's that. Now, I did speak about the Bricks class sync, so I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So let's say you have let's just collapse all this. Let's say we have another setup, and we're going to stick a Bricks nav in there. So I'm just going to go in here, put a nav menu in there. So we get a Bricks nav menu. Now, when a nav menu renders, let's have a look here. Oops, not the page source. Inspect that. Okay, so here's our nav menu. So our nav menu is that there. That's what we inserted. Under that, we have a class which is Bricks nav menu wrapper. We have Bricks nav menu. We have Bricks menu item. So these are all underneath that one structure there, even though we only added a single element on the screen. So what we can do here is we can target that. We add a class or from the ID, and we can do .bricks nav, and it's showing us where are these coming from. Bricks nav menu. Okay. Ooh. BG red. Look, we're targeting that. All right, what about a Bricks nav menu item? Whoops. This is why I need these tools, so I'm terrible at typing. Menu item. I know with these are the LIs, and the LIs in Bricks always have a margin on the left. Let's set the margin to 0. Whoops, margin, just margin. 0. Got rid of that left margin on those bloody things, right? Now above that is our nav, which is the Bricks nav menu wrapper. Okay, so let's go to that. Actually, let's see, is the nav menu, Bricks nav menu, so the wrapper's underneath it. Nav menu wrapper, and let's put some space on there using a gap. No space. Space small. We're in the right spot. I don't know if we are. It's Bricks. It's not the wrapper. Sorry, it's on the Bricks nav menu. UL's the nav menu. Okay. I was already on it. There we go. So we just put a gap there instead on the UL and then got rid of the margin on the LI. So we put a proper gap there now, right? So you can style up your menus. The other thing you can style up is other elements. So this is a typical Bricks nav menu. Let's say we put an accordion there. Accordion nestable. Yeah, accordion nestable. Dot. BRXE accordion. BRXE accordion. Nested. BG red. Okay, it's probably not targeting the right thing here, but you can see what I mean by once you figure out what you've got in the front end, you've got all these type of heads here, and you can see here that when I type that, if I type dot BRXE accordion, it's telling me that's an element. Right, the other one was telling me it's bricks because I don't know why, but in the Bricks code, a nav menu is a bricks feature that's built into core, and an accordion is an element. So I'm not sure why that is. Okay, now the other thing we have in here is type heads for our classes. So if we have a look at what classes we've got, I've got in here, I haven't got very many. So if I look in here and add a class, we've got a few there. We've got some, say this we get with the typography. Let's go, we start typing dot typography. This is a global class. All right, so we want to target our element. So let's actually go to, I'm going to show you on the actual style. Let's go to the actual style guide. We'll edit this with Bricks. Come on, come on. Sometimes Insta does this to me. It might be my speed. I'm in Thailand, so sometimes my internet speed drops as well. So we have a typography. Where's our typography? Our sample copy. Let's go to our sample copy. Actually, let's do an Alt click on that so we're just seeing our sample copy. Okay, there's our Alt click on there. Now, let's see what we have here, and I'm just going to actually just do that on the front end. Just going to right click, inspect, just see what we're working with first. I don't know about you guys, but my dev tools has become terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay, what do we got here? Did we put any classes on that at all? Section H1. Maybe we didn't. maybe we didn't on that one. So let's have a look at this. Okay, so we've got a typography list here. So we've got a class called typography list. List item, okay. So I'm going to go to my typography list and I'm going to say on this particular typography list, what are we actually looking at? Sorry, what were we looking at the top here, weren't we? That's our typography list. Let's go to, so it's not the sample copy we want. It is the text sizes here. Just going to do an alt click on that. Okay. So in our text sizes here, at the ID level, I'm just going to do r.typ. This is really slow because of all the elements on there. Typography list. So we're going to say from our ID, the typography list has a bg-r. There we go. It's very, very slow because I'll show you why. I'll show you why, what's going on here. If we expand everything out, it's going to take a little while because we have so many elements. Like if I scroll through, Bricks is still rendering. So if I go through there, this is our color swatches. This is our, look, we're not even part way down this list here. We've got so many elements on this page that it's just struggling to render all of these elements. So that's why when we put everything into a style guide, you're typically not going to have this on a website, but there's a lot of elements on here. All right, so that just also reminded me of the last thing I think I'll show you here, because there is many more things that I can show you in here, but I think the video is going to get far too long. I'm going to show you one of the last features in here, and then I'm going to quickly show you how to create a component and using the component properties. All right, so let's look at this feature. And it's very simple. From wherever we are, hold the Alt key down, use your mouse to scroll. All right, and it's just going to select the next element in the list. Even if you're inside the preview iframe, you click on that, you hold your Alt key down, arrow up, scroll up, and it's just going to select through all those for you. So really, really quick way of selecting your elements. That is one feature there. Now, I'm going to clean out everything here that we've just done so we can just work with the original template. And we've just got this really simple template here, right? Now this here is a typical set of elements that you would have in a title block. But what we're going to create is some components. So this button, for example, here we're going to create that as a set of components. At the moment, it is a Bricks button group. I'm going to create our own. I'm just going to go and create a section here. In there, I'm going to create a div. And inside that div, I'm going to add a 2 buttons. Okay, I'm going to call this my button group. Because it's not coming from the Bricks, it's going to name it differently. It's not coming from the Bricks Wireframes. Call that button group button. Okay, and then I'm going to auto BEM. All right. Now I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to save that as a component. Okay, save this as buttons. Okay, create. We have a component called buttons. Now typically what we're going to have on a component group called buttons is we need to style this. So we've got button group, we're going to do we're going to do a display or flex, and we're going to make sure that is a row. I think we need to justify or align our items to the center so that the sizes work properly. And then we're going to set a gap of content gap. Actually, I'll use the word gap. Content gap, and we've got a really simple button set up here, right? Now, so we can make this variance, I'm also going to add a font size of text medium. Text medium is our base point. Font weight, normal. text transform of, say, TT was a text transform. So anything you can think of that's 2 words, just try the 2 first letters, and it's probably a quick shortcut for that. Text transform. I don't know what available options are, so I hit control space. That's my available options. I'm going to uppercase that. Okay. What else do we need? We've got everything I need. Our color. Let's see our color. Actually, we're not going to use color because we're going to use these as, we're going to use the variants for that. Okay, so I'm going to grab all of these rules here. So I'm going to copy all those. I'm going to right click and I'm going to create variables. Now I've created my variables. I can now point at my caret on the button group here. I'm going to create a variant. I'm going to call this variant compact. Okay, here's my compact. I need my, don't care about the direction. Don't care about the text transform. I don't care about the font weight. What I do care about is the font size. I'm going to make that small, and I'm going to make that divided by 2, and it comes up with our little hint. I press tab, and now it's divided by 2. So there's our compact done, right? I then lock that and go back to my button group, and I create another variant. I'm going to call this vertical. Okay, now what do we want on our vertical? We want that to be a flex direction of column. Okay, so it's a column. We're going to get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. We don't care about any of those. And don't care about aligning. Don't care about a font size. All we care about is that. Oh, by the way, I remember this, so I'm going to change this to just be button, so you can see a problem here. When you go vertical, we need to set our line on it. Okay, so on that, we need to then change the. I forgot to name that. Sorry, forgot to press space. So I just double click, and call that vertical. Press the enter key. And we're on the vertical. We need to grab our align items. So, oh, by the way, just here, so on the align items, so I've got a construct here, which is my locally scoped variable with a var, with a fallback, and sorry, a override and a default. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. If I go into my other class here on a new line and I press Control Alt V, it will give me my override and the value. I'm going to make that stretch. Okay, so now we're stretching instead of aligning, and now our buttons line up properly. Right, so that is our vertical variant done. Lock that. Okay, now not that we need those in this particular case, so I'm going to remove those, and I'm going to remove those. But now we've got a very simple button set. Whoops, remove the wrong one. Okay, very, very simple button set with a couple of variants, and we've got some overrides that we can use if we wish to above it. All right, now we're going to create some properties. And properties is something I found really, really frustrating in components. And I'll tell you the reason is because you cannot, by default, you can't copy and paste or duplicate properties. You can duplicate components, but not parts of components. Now, if you look at a button, for example, we need text. So we need text. We're going to call this button 1. Okay, we need text on the button, right? And we call this button 1. Okay, what else do we need on the button? We need a link. So we need a link on the button 1. We need a size. So I'm going to use a select. I'll call that size. Okay, we need a, actually we can duplicate that, copy property paste, or we're just going to go, we need another select, which will be our style. Okay, we need another one, which is going to be a toggle, which is our hide. We're going to need another one, which is a toggle, which is a circle. And we're going to need one more, which is a toggle, which is a outline. Okay, is that correct? I'm actually going to move this toggle to the top here, so it makes more sense. So we got to hide it. We've got text, link, size, style, circle, outline. Oh, we're going to need an icon as well. So we need an icon, and we'll set that as a default. I don't know if this actually works. I'll just use a themify one of that. Did that work? It did. How do we do the location of it? We can't. We have to. That's another property we have to look at. So we need an icon there, right? So let's start linking these up. So I'm going to link that up to button 1's visibility. Set that to my button 1 hide. That button 1 hide. Close that. While we're on the toggles, let's go back to button 1. What's going on here? I jumped out of here somehow. Okay, let's just go back. We want to link our text to button 1. Something weird happened here. Oh, we're on the style. Okay, we're going to link our button 1 text. Going to link our size to size. Going to link our property to style property to property. Circle to circle, outline to outline, link to link, and then icon to icon. All right, so we're done with that button. All right, now if we jump out of here and have a look at our button there. Some funky stuff happening here. Why are our properties not showing? Didn't save the properties. Some new bug. Haven't seen that bug before. Let's do it again. Text. I'm just going to keep it simple this time. I'm just going to do text. Text on button 1. Okay, let's do a style. Let's just do so there it is there. I'm going to do a style. I'm just going to do text and style because I can't be bothered going through all that again. We'll do one toggle, one text, one style. So we'll do a toggle, which would be a hide. And we do another toggle, which will be a select, and that will be style. Just going to link those up to our buttons text. Buttons text. Well, that's interesting. We've got all these linked here that don't exist. There's some new bug there. Interesting, isn't it? So we've got a whole bunch of stuff actually linked to this button, but they don't actually exist. Okay, I'm going to save this and just do a reload. Okay, let's try that again. Let's go back to our button. Properties. Properties don't exist. Properties, button 1. Delete it. Yeah, we still have properties on there. There's something funky going on with these components, so I'm going to leave it at that. What I was going to show you, in fact, is I might just... Oh, boy, this is frustrating. Disconnect. I don't know why they disappeared. Alright, so we don't have anything there. Let's go to properties. Let's add a group. Button 1. Go to our groups. Stick you under button 1. Save. It's not even doing it. Far out, this is really messed up. Okay. Oh, we didn't put it in the group. That was me that messed up. So I'm not sure what the bug is here. I haven't seen that happen before, so... Alright, let's just do text, hide and style, just for now. So button 1, text, hide and style. I'm going to link those up to our buttons, visibility. It's already on there. It's already on there. We're going to link up our text to our... What the hell are these coming? Where are these coming from? What? Yeah, okay, I'm going to leave it at that because this is really messed up. What I wanted to show you guys is all these duplicate, copy, paste things. So we can copy the entire group set and we can paste it onto another component. We can copy the entire group and copy that and paste it onto another component. We can duplicate the group or we can copy properties. So if I have this style property set up, I can copy that and I can paste it there and it gives it a number and I can call that type. Okay, and we can double click on these and we can rename any of these. Let's say we go into there and we want a duplicate of that, duplicate that, double click, call that button group 2, enter, and now we've got a button group 2 for our second button. So these are features of BRXProd. They are not features of Bricks Core as of this point of recording. So sorry I ran across, I wasn't expecting to run across those bugs there with the components. I have not seen that happen before, so I'm not sure. I've just upgraded to the latest Bricks, which is, let's have a look in here. Maybe in there. What is Chrome doing to me? Actually, what am I doing? I could have got to that through... I could have just got to that through... Oh, the whole thing's put to bed now for me. So I don't know if this is an InstaWP issue or not. But all right, I'm going to leave it at that because that is a lot to go through. I could spend probably an hour or more on each feature. But I wanted to give you an overview of using this, how quick it is to start from absolutely nothing and then build up to having your site production ready, using the Bricks Wireframes and BRXProd, so nothing else whatsoever, and I think that is pretty cool. So let's leave it at that, and I will come back to you guys with another video when we can start talking about specific individual features.